Yeah, hi there. These comments are for Belal, and I am Michael from OTC, online TOEFLcourse.com. How you doing, buddy? I apologize for missing the meeting today. I just had too many things going on, so I'll make up for it in the feedback I give you by video. So send me some writing and speaking practice, maybe today or tomorrow. I'll give you more feedback on that. All right? Okay, so we have the integrated speaking rubrics here. I have your integrated speaking here. Let's listen
According
to
to
it.
the passage, a commitment device is a plan made by people in order to avoid a conflict between their own immediate desires and their long-term goals. The professor tells a story about his own experience when he was preparing to run a 10-kilometer race, and he wasn't trained enough to go for this far distance. So he committed to get up early every morning before work to exercise. But he ended up continuing to sleep longer and didn't feel well to exercise at that time. But when he gave a promise to one of his friends who he asked to meet every morning to run with, he became more responsible, and he get up early and end the race, and he did very well.
Okay. I think you're running into too many problems with delivery on this one. So you had quite a few pauses and hesitations in there. You had some disruptions. I think you had one or two language use issues. And maybe you can even improve the topic development a little bit, right? So I'm going to put you in the low 3. I'm going to say probably between 22 and 23 points out of 30 on this practice test. Let's listen to it one more time.
According to the passage, a commitment device is a plan made by...
Okay, so what I would do is, in the beginning, is say the reading passage discusses an academic concept called the commitment device, and then the speaker in the listening passage gives an example to expand on that idea. Then say, first of all, according to the reading passage, commitment device is defined as blah, 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 blah. Say, second of all, the speaker gives an example to expand more on what commitment device is and how it applies in real life situations or something. So you need to do a little bit better framing your
people
response
in order to avoid a conflict between their own immediate desires and their long-term goals. The professor tells a story about his own experience.
So the professor gives an example to further expand on this idea. That's the more general statement that you can explain. Once you've explained the general statement, then you can get into your more specific details.
When he was preparing to run a 10-kilometer race.
Okay, preparing.
And he wasn't trained enough to go for this far distance.
He wasn't trained enough to run this distance. Just say not far distance, but just this distance. Or he wasn't trained enough to run this far. So there's no real need to use far and distance at the same time. It's kind of redundant.
So he
I would say, therefore,
committed to get up early every morning before work to exercise. But he ended up continuing to sleep.
How about this? Therefore, he made a commitment to himself that he would get up every morning to run, to get ready for the race.
Longer, and didn't feel well to exercise at that time. But when he gave...
I probably would say maybe a little, drop the tone, longer pause, say, however, when he made this commitment to his friend...
a promise to one of his friends who he asked to meet every morning to run with, he became more responsible, and he get up early.
And he got up early. He became more responsible, so he got up early every morning.
And end the race, and he did very well.
And how about just say ran the race very well, even achieving his target's time that he was trying to achieve or something. Okay, so I think that my score is pretty accurate there. So I think definitely you can make some improvements with how you organize and develop the response, and you can also improve with your thought groups and blending. I think that's pronunciation lessons 41 through 44, and you had maybe one or two minor problems with language use, particularly when it comes to verb tenses. Okay, so you're doing another integrated speaking practice test. This time, you're focusing on TOEFL integrated speaking task number 4. So listening, speaking, academic. I have the rubrics here. I have your practice test. Let's listen
According
to
to the
it.
professor, there are two hoarding strategies done by animals in order to store food for the future. The first strategy is putting a big pile of food in one place, and the animal can defend and protect its food from other animals. And she gives an example of a squirrels which can protect its food by its aggressiveness. She put food. It puts food in one place under trees.
Watch
The
out for
second
those
strategy is
hesitations.
dispersing by dividing food in many places, and she gives example of the rat in deserts which borrow food under sands in hundreds of different locations, and because of its ability to remember these places, it can find food. According to the professor,
Yeah, the problem that we have here that I'm having is it says it does say, let me see if I can show you this where it's a little bit bigger here. It says pace may vary at times as a speaker attempts to recall information. Overall intelligibility remains high. But then it says speech is generally clear, fluid, and sustained. It's like both of these ideas almost contradict each other, so it's difficult to interpret exactly what they mean by this. I know that you need to pause to recall information, but at the same time, you're not having very fluid speech. You're having a lot of pauses, a lot of hesitations in there that I think are also causing some trouble with your overall intelligibility, right? So that's why I'm not comfortable putting you in the 4 area because of that. And probably, I don't know, I think that your language use, topic development were pretty good on this, but you just don't have fluid and sustained speech. So that's why I think down here, I think really describes what you're doing. So I'm going to put you right around 3.0 out of 4, 23 points out of 30. On this practice test. Listen to it one more time.
there are two hoarding strategies done by animals in order to store food for the future.
Why not instead of saying there are, just say the professor discusses 2 holding strategies, blah, blah, blah.
The first strategy is putting a big pile of food in one place.
It's putting a big pile. So you're trying to be more conscious of the bilabial consonants. I get it. You're trying to pronounce them, but you're still not getting that exactly. So you need to work a little bit more on that pudding, piles, and so on.
And the animal can defend and protect its food from other animals. And she gives an example of a
I would say, furthermore, the professor gives an example.
squirrels which can protect its food.
So it gives an example of, I think that you said squirrels plural, right? Let's listen to it.
And the animal can defend and protect its food from other animals.
Okay, let me look at that one more time. I still missed it.
The strategy is putting a big pile of food in one place, and the animal can defend and protect its food from other animals.
Okay.
And she gives an example of a squirrels which can protect its food.
So the example of squirrels, which can protect their food. You have to use their because their is plural. It's kind of like a plural, what do you call that? A possessive adjective maybe, and it refers back to squirrels, which is a plural noun. So you can't say squirrels and then its. Then you kind of have a pronoun agreement issue.
By its aggressiveness. She put food. It puts food in one place under
It. How about the small mammal puts its food?
trees. The second strategy is dispersing by dividing food in many places, and she gives example of the rat in desert which borrow
How about the desert rat instead of the rat in desert? Just say desert rat.
food under sands in hundreds of different locations, and because of its ability to remember these places, it can find food. According to the professor.
Okay. Okay, so I think looking back at the rubrics, yeah, I think you can probably do a little bit. Sometimes when you mention a noun, I notice this, you'll mention a noun, and then you want to refer to it again. You don't want to say exactly the same, squirrels, and then instead of saying squirrels, you can say these small animals, right? So sometimes you need to do better with the vocabulary as you refer back to something you've already mentioned instead of just using pronouns all the time. And you seem to have a lot of problems with pronouns generally, right? If the pronoun singular, it should refer to a singular noun. The pronoun is plural, it refers to a plural noun. But even using synonyms of the word you've already mentioned is a great way to kind of tie the two ideas together and to improve the cohesion and maybe reduce some of those grammatical errors that you're having in there. I think if we look at, I think for the master lesson, if you go to the speaking section and right above where it says lesson number 3, integrated speaking task 2, let's click on this. I'm going to show you some things I want you to work on right now. I think this will be good. So I'm going to click on the link to go to that lesson. Okay, so let's take a look at the task integrated for speaking task 3. I'd like you to take a look at 1632, template for TOEFL integrated speaking task 3. You can just click on that. It takes you directly to that part of the lesson. And then model response using the template for TOEFL integrated task 3. Again, click and it leads you directly to that lesson. And then 1634, 1635, you have a template for integrated task 4 and then a model response for integrated task 4. I think that's going to be helpful for you. And then go to 3 where it says TOEFL integrated speaking strategies. You have the mock test, model response, test taking strategies. I think that's good for you right now. And again, go to number 4, integrated task number 4, mock test, model response, test taking strategies there. So you get a little bit better kind of grip on how to do that. I think that's going to be important for you right now. Okay, so for pronunciation, let me show you some things I think are going to be helpful for you right now. I know you've been working on it already, so speak clearly, lesson number 19, pat versus bat, consonant, the P and the B consonant sounds. And then go over to lesson 41, 42, 43, and 44, thought groups and blending. So I think getting a little bit more familiar with the structure for these two speaking tasks and then working in the pronunciation part of my course can help you address some of the problems you're having right now. All right, and thank you for completing these two speaking practice tests. So I think the low 3, I'm going to say right around 23 points, 3.0 out of 4. This is probably a pretty accurate score based on the competency descriptors that ETS has outlined for the TOEFL integrated speaking tasks. That's why I'm giving you the score that I am there based on the description you see in those 4 areas there.